Good morning, and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grove here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering natural health on this year Wednesday morning, Rise and Shine. And this morning here, I'm looking at a topic: health laws are blessings, enrichment, privileges. So health laws are blessing, enrichment, and privileges. So we continue with our theme for this week. Welcome again. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of this day, for the blessings, dear Lord, of your word. I pray that you may be with us as we look at these things, dear Lord, that is going on in the world, and for health. May you be with us. We pray for Christ's sake. Amen. So again, I'm looking at these health laws. The topic again is health laws are blessings, privileges, enrichment, and privileges. And this here is important in light of what's going on. So I have some, just some current things that I want to talk about when it comes on to the coronavirus and also what's going on with the not just the coronavirus, but with alcohol and stuff. So I'm going to start off by reading some text and continue with what we're talking about before I get to that. And again, my theme for this week is restrictions, rules, forbidden, or blessings, enrichment, and privileges. So when there's a certain restriction put in place, it is definitely for our blessings and our enrichment, for our protection. And yet, as sinners, we have a choice to do things that will cause hurt to others and hurt to ourselves. This is the freedom that we have. We can go down a certain path that is very upsetting or damaging to us, damaging to others, and long term and short term, we will get bad results. And in natural health, this is often very obvious real quickly because the implications are you're in pain or you're causing somebody else's pain. And so when we read the Bible, the it's off-putting to most people because there's a lot of restrictions on things that shouldn't be eaten, and so we're going to cover some of that today. And so these health laws, these principles to keep us healthy, they're there for that purpose, to keep us healthy. And when we see the spread of disease, many of these health laws will be they're very important to stem the flow of the disease. I start back with my main text, the halfway through it. I'm going to start back with Ezekiel 18, verse 7 through 9. Ezekiel 18, verse 7 through 9 says, "And add not oppress any man." So this is talking about describing the righteous. "Add not oppress any man, but add restore to the debtor his pledge. Add spoiled none by violence. Add given his bread to the hungry. Add covered the naked with garment. He that had not given forth upon usury, neither had taken any increase, that had not withdrawn his hand from iniquity. Had execute true judgment between man and man. Had walk in my statutes, and had kept my judgments to deal truly. He is just. He shall surely live, says the Lord God. So when we look at these principles here, especially in verse 9 here for this day, who had walked in my statutes and had kept my judgments and deal truly. So when we look at the principle of the Lord, it is primarily how we deal with him. We're faithful to the true God, and how we deal with our fellow human being. We're faithful to the words, to the statutes and the judgments that we might bless others. And ultimately what we're doing, we're having a lifestyle around us that is a blessing to those around us and ourselves. And in natural health, we are primarily affecting ourselves, but also, especially when it comes on to diseases, we're affecting others, because whether it be a communicable disease that we got from eating animals, or a disease that we got because of sexual immorality, whatever that is, we normally, as I say, no man is an island, no man stands alone. So because of that, we can open up diseases to our fellow human beings, and cause problems like what we see going on now with the coronavirus and with many of the problems and diseases that we see happening. And it's a cost to society, a massive cost to society. And so we're all in this together, and these rules, even though they're flaunted or ignored or they're ignorant of by the masses, it tend to affect us all. And so the choices, the lifestyle choices of others do affect us. We are impacted by others' choices because we're all in this together. We're all on the same planet, in the same country and society and communities. So this is the reality. So when we see all these things happening with, as I'm going to talk about, with the alcohol problem or the drug epidemic, or we see this happening with the things like now the coronavirus and the current flu, it's your treatment of yourself affects me, and my treatment of myself affect you. And we might say, oh, this is just my body and I can do what I want to do with it. It's true, but it's also come with repercussion for me in multiple ways, whether it be by the insurance costs or by being having too many diseased people in the society. It affects us in multiple ways. In Proverbs 26, verse 1, 2, and 3, it says, as the snow in the summer, as snow in summer, and as rain in harvest, so honor is not seemly for a fool. As the bird by wandering, as the swallow by flying, so the curse causeless shall not come. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the ass, and a rod for the fool's back. So here, this very powerful principle that is so powerful for health, that things that don't come by happenstance. There's a cause and effect. There's laws that are being broken. There's something that's happening that's causing diseases to mutate, to get more powerful. And as these happen, we're seeing these outbreak of diseases, or these outbreak of pestilence, as they would call it, in the world. And so as we see this, it is clear that there's a cause and effect, and it's important to understand the cause, else one will not understand the effect, or one will see the effect but they can't understand how this effect came about. So as the snow in summer, which doesn't really work, or if it happens, you say, well, what's going on, right? So if you have snow in summer, or if you have summer in winter, then you know something is amiss, something is wrong. And harvest and rain in harvest, at the harvest time, rain normally hold back, right? You get less rain in the harvest so that the crops can dry. So there's a pattern, there's a rhythm to life that has to be observed. And when you observe this, when there's an anomaly, when there's a break in that rhythm, you have to ask the question, why? These things just don't happen like that. So honor is not seeming for a fool. So, if your person is a very silly person and you give them honor, you're wasting your time. So as the bird by wandering, as the swallow by flying, so a curse causeless shall not come. So if you see a curse like the coronavirus, or the alcohol epidemic, or the drug epidemic, or the video game epidemic, or the whatever epidemic that's going on that's damaging people, the cancer epidemic, the diabetes epidemic, the high blood pressure, coronary artery epidemic, then you know that this curse is a curse, it's a pestilence, a pest in our system and in our society. Does not come without a cause. But oftentimes they'll make it sound like these curses are just there without a cause. Remember, most of the viruses that we deal with, they're either in animals or they're in the soil. Most of the viruses are actually anthrax. As an example, anthrax is in the soil. Many of these deadly things are in the soil. We interact with dirt, with farm, and a farmer could be farming for thousands of years. Farmers have been farming, and these bacteria, viruses, they don't do nothing. Now you have modern farming, and you have all these farmers dying of cancer because they're interacting with all this pesticide and all these genetic modified organisms and all that. So you see them dying at a high rate of cancer. You say, oh, okay, this is a curse. Why is this curse happening? And then you realize the curse does not come without cause. If you're dealing with things that are modified or that are dangerous chemical that will unravel the DNA sequence and basically just unravel us and destroy our bodies, then you have to say, well, what's causing that curse? And you go study that and you say, oh, this is what's going on. And then you realize the curse does not come without a cause. There's a law that's been broken. And so in the Bible lays out certain laws that need to be followed. And when you follow these laws, you find that the curse does not come without a cause, or the curse will not come. And so, as we look at it in a few minutes, I'll touch on the coronavirus, and then after that, I'll touch on some stuff that's going on with alcohol. So, when you look at these curses, you have to first figure out what's the cause. If you can't ascertain the cause, it's hard for you to figure out what to do. And even after you ascertain the cause, then it's going to be still a difficulty to try to figure out what's the solution. So we're going to talk about some solution towards the end to deal with some of these diseases, primarily coronavirus. And so notice here, I'm going to read for you an example here of what I'm talking about here. Leviticus chapter 11, verse 4. Oh, and again, verse 3 of Proverbs 26. Is there a whip for the horse, and a bridle for the ass, and a rod for the fool's back? So a bridle for the ass, or a whip for the horse, and a rod for the fool's back. So this is the reality: is that when everybody have a choice, you have a choice, I have a choice. We choose how we eat, we sleep, we live and move and have our beings. But if we're making dumb choices and foolish choices, all we're gonna have is a whip, a bridle, and a rod. That's all it's gonna happen. It's just gonna keep getting whipping. And because it might be my choice, and it's my body and my mouth, and I can do whatever I want to do with my ass, or with my mouth, or with my ears, or wherever I want to do, or my eyes, I can look at what I want to look at. But there's going to be a cost to pay. And we are trying to move from stupidity and foolishness to sobriety and sensible, wise choices, because we don't want to get the whip, the bridle, and the rod. And as we see, as people say, they're free to do what they want to do, they're free to eat what they want to eat, they're free to use their, as I said, the ass here for how they want to use it. Well, there's going to be some penalties to pay, and there's going to be some whipping. And so we don't want to get that whipping. So in Leviticus 11, verse 4 through 8, it says, Nevertheless, these shall ye not eat of them that chew the cud, and them that divide the hoof. The camel, because he cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof, is unclean unto you. And the coney, because he cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof, is unclean unto you. The hare, because he cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof, is unclean unto you. The swine, though he divided the hoof, and be cloven foot, yet he cheweth not the cud, is unclean unto you. Of these flesh ye shall not eat, and their carcasses shall ye not touch. They are unclean unto you. So these are restrictions in the Bible. So these are health laws that will bless you, enrich you, and it's a privilege to keep. It's a privilege not to eat camel. As you know, this was the outbreak up in a few years ago in the Middle East because they were eating the camel, and they got MERS, MERS, MERS. So they got that, and this was from the camel. A few years before that we had the swine flu epidemic. I don't know if it became a pandemic that was sweeping the world because, again, people eating the pig or the swine, and they come down with the diseases. So these diseases are not without cause. There's a source for them. There is a process where the disease mutate because drugs. If the disease is drugs never cure diseases, only changes form and location. So as disease mutate, then what happened? It will become more virulent and more dangerous, and this will what will happen. So just keep that in mind. So when we look at these things here and we look at these health laws, somebody will say, well, they're restrictive because they're stopping me from doing whatever. Well, when you look at it again, even if you didn't know it before, but as you learn it, you say, well, this is logical. Later on the Bible talks about, birds not to eat, and birds that can be eaten, and the birds that should not be eaten, including the bat. The bat should not be eaten. The crows should not be eaten. The buzzards, the eagles. And you look at it, you say, well, that's logical. There's certain birds that it seems very fair. that the Bible would tell you and I not to eat. And again, birds like crows, buzzards, bats, and as you know, the coronavirus is primarily at this point here is linked to bats and pangolin, which is an anteater, which seemed quite logical that one should not eat the anteater, right? So I just came back on. My connection was, I guess, dropping for some reason. So this is the problem that is happening. So let me go to now my two articles before I share some things about what to do with if you get the coronavirus. And I'm gonna go first in my article. I'm gonna read the whole thing, but I'm gonna share some things here first with the alcohol problem. So we're having a major problem with alcohol, and this is a long article. I'm going to share the whole, but I just want to share with you. This is some personal stories about people dealing with alcohol problem, and it's this is notice here. So I'm stable back now. My connection just went AWire, but I think it's stabilized now for the last 2 minutes. So this article is taken from USA Today. This is written last week. If you want to read it, it was written 2020, and it's entitled "They Were Young. They Thought They Had Time. They Nearly Died of Liver Disease." So again, this is from Indianapolis, so Indiana over there. So it says, although Rachel Martin would never deny she had a drinking problem, she figured years would pass before it would take a toll on her health. After all, she had not yet hit 40. She had managed to eke out 2 years of complete sobriety after about a decade ago. Even when she was drinking, she would hit the bottle hard for 3 weeks, but then go cold turkey for a week. So when Martin started feeling off about a year and a half ago, she tried to ignore the symptoms. She lost her appetite, her skin itched, and as she put it, she lost her weight, her waist as fluid accumulated in her abdomen. For 4 months, she continued to drink, but in mid March 2019, she decided she was done. The next day, she finally went to the doctor and found out she had cirrhosis of the liver, something that did not surprise her given her internet aided self-diagnosis. What did surprise her, however, was what her doctor said. If she did not stop drinking, she if she did not stop drinking, she might die within a month. Even if she did quit, she might not make it 3 months. So basically, the doctor is saying, whichever way it goes, you will be dead in 1 to 3 months. You know it's bad for you. You know it's not healthy at all whatsoever, but you think, oh, I have no family history of this, says Bloomington resident who is now 39. I know people that drink more than I do, and they're fine. I have years before I have to worry about this. Doctors are seeing more patients like Martin, people in their 20s and 30s with symptoms of acute liver disease related to alcohol consumption. The National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism published a study in January that found that from 1999 to 2017, the number of alcohol related deaths per year doubled, rising from 35,914 to 72,558, which is phenomenal. Just under a third of those resulting from liver disease. So I'll pause here because this is one of the main reasons I wanted to share this with you, to share what's going on in our society. So notice here, this is published by the Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, and they did a study, and they did from 1999 to 2017. So just under a few years shy of 20 years, and 18 years, right? And the number of alcohol-related deaths per year doubled. So, which is not a good thing, right? If you're having a doubling of deaths per year from 35,000 to 72,000. So remember, these numbers are similar to what's going on. I think it's a little bit higher. The article will say later to what's going on with the opioid crisis. So there's a massive crisis going on. And remember, for every one person that die, you have multiple more that are sick or on the way to getting severely sick to death. So this number is serious because these are the bodies. The body count normally tell you a smaller percentage of what's going on. So it's a very good indicator of what's happening. So 35,000 to 72,000, a little bit over double, right? Just under a third now resulted in liver disease. So so of the 72,000, my math here is failing me, but a third of that resulted in liver disease. Similar, a study in the British Medical Journal published in 2018 also noted a dramatic increase in the deaths in the United States from psoriasis from 1999 to 2016. In that time period, people ages 25 to 34 saw the highest increase. So we're talking about the young. This is important again to note because I remember when if you look back in not the same problem but a different problem, which was when the swine flu epidemic took place back in 1918 all the way up to I think 1930 something 1930 something or so. It went on straight through the depression, but the most people died in the first 25 months. So the first 2 years and a half or 2 years plus. So think about that, a little bit over 2 years. So if you think about that number, when you look at the swine flu, it killed most of the people in the 20s to 40s. And so this is problematic for any society because those are the childbearing age and the years that a person develop their ability to make money. And so those are the most productive years. You go to school until you're 18 to 20 something, and then you start to develop a career. And then sometime in the late 30s, 40s, late 30s to mid 40s, this is when you hit your peak of income earning, mental ability, just whatever, everything, family, everything is there in that late 30s to 40s. So if you look at this number, this is why this is troubling for society because both journals or both groups, National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism and the Medical Journal, British Medical Journal, looking at this and coming up with similar numbers and saying the biggest number is in the 20s and 30s. The British Journal put it down to 25 to 34. So we're talking about the prime of society dying or going to be severely physically damaged for years before they die because their liver is shot, which your liver now is your chemical production site. This is your chemical factory. So that means there's a lot of other stuff going on bad in the body when your liver is down, right? Now, notice here again in the article, I want to take some more stats from this article. Many of those who wind up requiring care do not fit the stereotypical image of an alcoholic. They may be highly productive individuals who work and have families until suddenly they find themselves facing an acute health crisis brought on by alcohol related liver disease, such as acute hepatitis or cirrhosis. The trend is particularly pronounced in middle aged women, whose studies suggest that high risk drinking is the highest in it has ever been. And this is said by Chalasani, somebody here that I skipped over reading for them. So in 2017, study by the University of Michigan researchers that looked at more than 100 million Americans with private insurance found that 50% increase in the prevalence of alcohol-related psoriasis in women from 2009 or 2009 to 2015 or 2015. So people are getting more sick, and the question is how much alcohol can be drink safely. Well, none. We believe in none, but according to the article here, several factors likely contribute, experts say. The alcohol industry invests heavily in marketing. Many people who drink start in college and just continue into young adulthood and beyond. Many social events seamlessly incorporate the consumption of alcohol, from women's nights out to football parties to business dinners. Doctors are seeing more patients with alcohol related liver disease who have no trouble functioning day to day. Because again, you're at your best, right? A person in their 20s to 30s would be functioning. And if you go into the 40s, you still would have a level of function. You still will have a level of function in your 40s. So notice here now, this is something that I've noticed over the years. I remember years back I was in Florida on vacation, and I was scanning through the channels and I came upon an advertisement, and the advertisement was so impressive. It was an advertisement with this some young people. They were like, the setting was like they were at a party, and they looked young, vibrant, and they just looked like it's almost like they gave the impression that in order for you to party like this and to be like this and to be cool like this, you need the alcohol. And I was looking at the advertisement thinking, and when it passed, I always said to myself I was going to find what the advertisement was, because I thought uh, genius in the devil's way, marketing. It's just I don't know. I've seen all this stuff with alcohol advertisement and stuff over the year, because it's like you can't escape it. See them on billboards, you see them in magazines, you see it everywhere. See vodka, gin, from the strongest alcohol to the whatever. But the way it's sold is so like, if you want to be cool, if you want to be hip, if you want to have a good life, you need to do alcohol. And that's how it's sold. And as I say, I remember seeing the advertisement and thinking, wow, that look, and there was no words. It just had the alcohol bottle and people with alcohol in their hand, and they just look cool. And I was like, you don't even need words. It's just the sight of the eye is similar. They're similar to advertisement like that for like cologne. Cologne is always like an advertisement where you don't need words. You just need somebody to look a certain way, and then they communicate the image that if you have this cologne, you can be like this. And so I can see now, as I say, the some consumption is now intertwined in certain social events. So it's more connected with social events. And so it seemed like it's the right thing. And it is almost so universal, right, that I don't even think nobody question it. Just even to read an article like this where they're making these, these observation, because I've observed it over the years, and I'm thinking now, alcohol was always something that was in, but more and more they make they get that cool factor in real down pack. It's not just people like, 007, whatever his name, James Bond, but the regular person can be cool. And now, doctors are seeing more patients with alcohol-related liver disease. There are people who consume alcohol on a moderate basis chronically, which is interesting, right? Moderate chronically, enough to be harmful to them, and they didn't really expect it to be that harmful. So this is a gastroenterologist that is saying this, right? So he's saying, look, there is enough people out there that are consuming alcohol on a daily basis, and it's enough to be harmful for them. And this is what's happening here. So I'm going to read it again. There are people who consume alcohol on a moderate basis chronically. And so if this is not a statement of the ages, I don't know what is, right? They're consuming the alcohol chronically, moderately, but on a chronic basis. Problem. An almost daily basis of a moderate amount of alcohol can be much more harmful than a binge drinker who drink once a month, then quit. So I wanted to bring this out, right? Because I think this was interesting. Because I've always heard, and I'm sure you've always heard people talk about, hey, look, it's everything is, as long as it's in moderation, everything is good. So here you have it now that there's young people in the 20s and 30s who are moderate chronically, which is just it's a strange way to say it, but I like it. Who would have thunk but a doctor who, gastroenterologist, and hepatologist, so somebody that probably deal with hepatitis and stuff, anything to do with the liver, um, liver diseases, was come up with something like that. So an almost daily basis of moderate amount of alcohol can be a much more harmful than binge drinker who drink once a month and then quit. So remember to share that, especially if you're interacting with people in the 20s and 30s and even 40s. To be careful of that moderate talk, because if you're pouring a caustic substance in your body like vodka or gin, or any of these tonics, and you're doing it and taking a shot glass even on a daily basis, they're saying now that's chronic, which is a unique way to say it. Never heard it, so I wanted to share it. Conventional wisdom used to hold that moderate drinking, a glass or two a day for women and up to 3 drinks for men, might actually benefit health. Studies also have touted that health benefits of wine, but experts have started to dial back such endorsements of alcohol, especially after a controversial 2018 study in The Lancet even suggests that no amount of alcohol is safe. So again, this is important. I'm telling you here, I'm sharing this with you here because I want you to see this is not just you and I saying this because we believe in the Bible. We believe wine is a mocker and strong drink is raging. 2018, the Lancet had come out and say no amount of alcohol is safe, which makes sense because alcohol, all it is basically it can drive your car. Our actually fuel right now is mixed with alcohol, with ethanol. So this is something that can drive your car, but it can't drive your body. And they're dialing back now their suggestions because in the past they would say wine is good. You've heard all the arguments. Strong liquor is good. And the Bible is very clear. If you're about to perish and you feel like you have no life and your life has no value, then go and drink that. It's just going to destroy you anyhow because you're already destroyed. But there is no, for nobody sensible. The Bible says if you're a prince or a king or a judge, you should not drink alcohol at all. If you're a priest, you should not drink alcohol at all. The only suggestion is, I guess, if you're living a life where you there's no value to your life, I guess, then I guess there's nothing lost, right? So conventional wisdom used to hold that a glass or two a day for women and then 3 for men is beneficial, but they're dialing back, because there's dialing back any such endorsement is saying no amount is safe. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention recommend that alcohol be consumed in moderation, which according to U.S. dietary guidelines consists of no more than a drink a day for women and 2 for men. Then there's conventional wisdom that alcohol related disease does not strike people in their prime of life. They think it's an older white guy who has psoriasis. He's been sitting around in a bar after work for decades, says Linda Yoder of the IU Health Physician Assistant, who run a weekly outpatient clinic where she helps care for people with liver disease. I see a really high percentage of patients in that clinic that are young. Is just devastating. Of course, not everyone who drinks wind up with health issues, which is why the problem is so confusing for people who do. Jordan Matley admitted in retrospect he probably drank too much, but it was an occupational hazard. For the past 3 years, he has tended bar. Rarely did he wind up so inebriated he couldn't drive, but he did down about a half of a fifth of a vodka a day, which is, I don't know what that is. I've read that multiple times and I couldn't understand what is a half of a fifth. So I guess a half of a fifth is, I guess if you take 1/5 of a vodka bottle and you take half of that, he would put that down into his stomach a day. In October, he started having acute stomach pain and he went to the hospital in Evansville where he lived. The doctor diagnosed him with alcohol liver hepatitis and psoriasis. Eventually, he grew so sick that the Southern Indiana hospital that was treating him transferred him to the IU Health University Hospital. In 3.5 weeks, he lost 40 pounds and was deathly ill when he arrived in Indianapolis. Now 28, Martinelli never thought his drinking could jeopardize his health. His doctor explained to him that everyone liver handle alcohol differently. Some people can handle it, some people can't. He says, but I guess I am one that can't. The question of why one person can drink heavily and no repercussions, which I don't believe that. There's repercussions. While another will drink even less and wind up in hospital with alcohol-related liver disease, plagued the expert. One theory is tied to the rise in obesity. The trend has led rates of non-alcohol liver disease to skyrocket to as much as a third of the U.S. population. So again, this is very important to have and to know. And I'm going to read some more of this article before I jump back to coronavirus. So what's happening is, I don't know if you remember reading in Ellen G. White's writing, she talks about the problem with eating eating milk and sugar and most naturally with eating ice cream. That when you add sugar to milk, has this protein and all that in there. And it has this sugar also, and then we add sugar to it, it ferments and it turns alcohol, right? So we keep that in mind, right? So you can have the fermentation process going on in your stomach, all right? Keep that in mind. So because remember, when you eat food and it's not properly mixed properly, if there's too much food in itself, too much mixture, too much confusion, the food putrefies. But that putrefaction is gonna cause all kind of rancidity and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. This is fresh. So there's a lot of news in this article. So notice here, one theory is tied to the rise in obesity. So the person is already overweight and their body is actually damaged. There's damage happening to the liver because liver is dealing with all this chemical damage in the liver. Then throw now probably one glass of a beer, one can of beer, one pint of beer. They're done. They're just blown out. And they seem like they're a hard drinker. Isn't that fascinating? Here the article will explain. Genetics also may help explain the discrepancy. Experts know, for instance, for some women, just 2 to 3 drinks a day for 4 to 5 years can lead to alcohol-related liver disease, which is fascinating, right? On an average, men can have one or more than that, says Chalasani said, but most people are not aware of the risk. For those with a genetic predisposition, that seemingly innocuous level of alcohol can lead to serious health problems. About a third of people who drink heavily go on to develop alcohol hepatitis, a condition in which the cells of the liver become inflamed. According to the American Liver Foundation, between 10 to 20% of heavy drinkers develop cirrhosis, in which the scar tissue in a damaged liver replace healthy tissue. So the liver just keep getting worse and worse and becoming scarred up, or it would just become inflamed. All right. Continue reading. In the early stage of liver disease, the condition can be reversed as long as the person stops drinking completely. An ultrasound of the liver can reveal how much damage a person's liver has sustained. Al-Sati said, if there is minimal to moderate damage, stop drinking will allow the liver to recover. But liver disease can be silent. So many people have no clue of the damage they are doing until the disease has advanced and they develop symptoms such as jaundice, nausea, vomiting, or abdominal pain and swelling. That's the strictest part about the liver. It is a dumb organ, Yoder said. It doesn't complain about anything until it's too late. Like many people, Martin started social drinking in her mid 20s. She began turning to alcohol more and more to cope for coping mechanism. But even then, patched she would have patches where she gave it up entirely, detoxing herself and so forth and so on. Um, I'm gonna skip down a little bit about and continue with this lady Martin just to kind of finish out the article. Until recent, Martin would not have been a candidate for transplant given her drinking history, but transplant center have been relaxing their criteria. Faced with the uptick of young people, a transplant can afford years of life for someone not yet in middle age who stays sober. In the past half year or so, IU Health has started considering patients like Martin on a case by case basis. Chalsani said, during the process, Martin did not tell many people about her medical travails. The thing about alcohol related liver disease, it's a dirty little secret, Martin said. It's embarrassing because you have done this to yourself. Since her transplant in August, so she got a transplant last year, August, Martin hasn't had a drink and she has no intention of ever drinking again. Her life, she said, is far better without alcohol. Mattingly agreed. He doesn't have a drink since October. He still is recovering. His doctor told him it gives it to give it time. He's hoping his youth will be on his side. They think that because I am so young that my liver will rejuvenate to a certain extent. I just don't ever want to go through it again. So two good I guess ending there. One stopped drinking. He stopped drinking now for like 5 months. And the other one last August got a liver. So she has a liver transplant. So she wasn't she didn't die in the 1 to 3 months that the doctor had said. So again, few quick things here from this article. So one is this idea here of moderate chronic, moderately chronically, right? So a person is drinking in a moderate way, but chronically because they do it daily, and that daily consumption of alcohol becomes a chronic reality, even though the daily numbers would be moderate. So they say, well, if imagine, I guess it would be similar to they would say, well, only you shouldn't eat more than 2 eggs a week. Well, yeah, but I guess if you do it every week, after a while, there's a build up. I don't know, but here they said no more than a pint to two, no more than 1 to 2 cups a day for a female, and then she's doing that on a daily basis, and now you're in your 30s, and that's it, almost lights out. But the liver transplant saved her. Another thing they're finding out, as I say, a large percentage of people who are 1/3 of the society have liver problem because they're obese. So again, what's happening there, I believe, which is the next point I wanted to bring, was that I believe what's happening is that the food is fermenting in the system. One of the things that they had said, either in that article or another article I was reading, is that I probably skipped it, but that a person could not be a heavy drinker, but the theory they're saying is that the person basically is producing the alcohol in their system. So they're not heavy drinkers, but they're having alcohol being produced in their system. And so I believe this is what we had learned about years back in health. When you read book like Constant Diet and Food, where in Constant Diet and Food it states very clearly that the body, you can have fermentation going on. And so if that fermentation going on, it's going to hit the liver. So here we have in these evidence scientifically showing that those statements are absolutely correct. That if you have a lot of ferment, if you keep eating food and it's putrefied in your stomach, that's going to affect the liver. And this is amazing that 1/3 of obese people, which is 40% of the population, are having cirrhosis of the liver. This is like amazing information. That's what's going on. So that's important. So a quick rundown now before we close off here for the next few minutes of coronavirus. As you know, what's going on with coronavirus is that they came out yesterday and said, the CDC came out yesterday and say that expect severe interruption in daily life or business or both. So that tells me that it's probably here already, because they're saying they have only tested 500 people, and most of those people are people that were like, taken back from China via the evacuation of the embassy and certain people, and then from the ship that was stalled, the Diamond of the Sea. So, and they said the capability to test is not being ramped up in America. They have not put the investment in as yet to ramp it up, which is kind of weird that it's taking them so long. So they only have 5 labs in the whole country. I guess the lab in Atlanta and 4 of the areas that can test for the virus. So they only tested 500 so far, and there's no implementation of a method to test. And then the problem they're saying also is in all the other tests you can do is basically a CT scan, and to do that and to do that at a massive industrial rate, it would need a rethinking in a very organized, regimented system, which they say the Chinese function on, but it's not implemented, and no other country really has that level of production where they can do, I think they said, 100 scan per machine a day, which is just basically a production line, which is not a scan that is really done on a fast-paced basis where you're just having people running through scan. And I think they even say up to 200 they could do. Some crazy number. They're just pushing people through it like crazy. And what that does is that it picks up kind of any type of opacity or any type of, infections going on in the lungs. And then from that, they can say, well, the person have a lung infection. So that possibly is COVID-19, which is the coronavirus. So that's some of what's going on. So it is this idea now that if there's going to be an interruption, what are you supposed to do? So real quickly from this article here, coronavirus update, U.S. soldier in South Korea tested positive as global toll rises. So a U.S. soldier in South Korea tested positive for COVID-19. So the death toll in South Korea is now 12. More than 2,700 corona deaths in China. Jamaica bar a cruise ship from docking or from offloading its passengers. So Jamaica bar cruise ship after crew member showed symptoms. A cruise ship with more than 6,000 on board has been denied access to the port of Ocho after a crew member displayed symptoms of the virus, Jamaica Health Ministry said in a statement issued on Tuesday. The crew member had a cough, fever, associated muscle pain with a travel history to a country of interest relating to the COVID-19, the ministry said in a statement. The crew member was placed in isolation after inspection by health officials. Following Jamaica's announcement, officials in Cayman Islands, where the ship is due to go next, announced they had barred the vessel from docking there. Anthony Cusumano and Yalia, next. More than 2,700 corona deaths in China. So this was reported by Antonia and Yulia. Health officials in China said there were more than 2,700 deaths linked to the novel corona in mainland China as of Tuesday. That's up from 2,663 deaths the day before. Officials with the country's National Health Commission recorded 406 new confirmed cases and 52 new deaths. There were more than 78,000 confirmed cases across mainland China, they said. U.S. soldier in South Korea now. A U.S. Service member stationed in South Korea has tested positive for COVID-19. United States Forces Korea said in a statement Tuesday. The 23-year-old stationed at Camp Coral, which is 135 miles southeast of Seoul, is the first U.S. service member to test positive for the virus. He is in self quarantine in his off base residence, the military said. The U.S. Forces Korea said military health officials were tracing the soldiers' contact to see who else had been exposed to the virus. South Korea has seen a rise in the number of confirmed COVID 19 cases since last Wednesday, with a total of 1,261 cases and 12 deaths reported. Right? So, those are some of the other news. The other news that I wanted to say is if you've been watching what's going on in Iran, Iran has been having probably the sharpest rise in the main countries that are having to deal with the COVID 19. So, it's China, South Korea, and then Italy is having a problem also. But this issue here going on in Iran is very troubling because it's hard to get news out of certain countries because they're allergic to freedom of information. But they've been blaming, and I've been watching this from Sunday. So on Saturday, they had parliamentary election in Iran, and the Ayatollah Khamenei came out at a press conference and blamed the spread of false information about the COVID-19 in Iran for low voter turnout. Well, it just so happened that by Monday now, the deputy health minister was on TV and he was talking about having a press conference and talking about that no information should go out unless it goes through official channel through the health ministry, and that there's a lot of lies being told. And then the next day, which is Tuesday, he came down ill and tested positive for COVID-19. And they have a very, in Iran, probably one of the most starkest high rates of deaths linked to the virus. So what does that say is it says you don't really know what's going on there because probably the disease is well on its way there. Why they would have such a high rate of deaths and such a low rate of confirmed sickness. Also, what makes it confusing is that you really don't know what's the true rate of death from COVID-19 in China, because the only way to confirm the death rate in China would be to find out what was January and February's morgue numbers. What was the morgues that are incinerating bodies numbers in January and February of 2019, and then take January and February of 2020 numbers, and then just do a math, do a subtraction, and then you will see how many people really died from COVID-19 or get a close approximation. Other than that, you really can't tell what's going on in China. So your only place I really believe we're going to really know at this point, America could give us the answer, but the only place you really could know is the numbers that are going to finally come out, probably the more true numbers from South Korea and Italy. Other than that, any numbers coming from out of China is suspect. As I said, only the morgue numbers will give you an idea of what's going on. Because as I said, the Iranian numbers sounds crazy. Now, some people are postulating in the media why the Iranian numbers are so high is because they're under embargo. And because of the embargo, they have very short supplies of disinfectants and face masks and other protective equipment, which would make sense because they are under embargo. And as you know, in Matthew 24, when Christ talked about war, famine, pestilence, it's in that exact order. War creates embargo and blockade, so there's no proper systems that are going to help with the sick. Then war creates famine, and then famine creates pestilence. So if you have a lot of people who are malnourished, if you have a decrease of disinfectant, natural health, health aids and stuff like that, because you can bite because you're on embargo, you are more susceptible to disease. You could have a rich country that brought to its knees because of embargoes. So this is what to watch, and if something goes down in Korea, that would be a disaster also. North Korea, I should say. Because and then this will be similar for other poor countries. So far, it's not showing up on the map in Africa. It's not showing up on the map in South America. Could be because there's no proper testing, so you can't prove. And they already have diseases like malaria and stuff another crazy disease in Africa that mimics this disease, and they have things like AIDS running wild. So, they could be having a disease and they burn people not knowing that they're dying from COVID-19. So that's something to watch in the upcoming days. So, real quickly here, just to close off this thought, right? So remember, health laws are blessing, enrichment, and privilege. It's a privilege for us to take care of our health. And some of the things that I want us to do here when it comes on to how to take care of your health, if you catch a disease or any disease, the flu that's going around is killed. They say it could be upward of 40 something thousand people could have died from October 1st to now from the flu. So the same thing you do for the flu is the same thing you do for any other thing like COVID 19. I always believe, and now I practice to always have wipes, alcohol based wipes or some of the based wipes that have some natural antibacterial to clean surface. So some wipes, face mask, goggles, or eyewear. If you have to be in public, because remember this thing is traveling by droplets in the air, and they're more able to travel in the winter time. So having some, number one, at least some face masks, and then have some wipes. Have disinfectant. The three things that I talk about here is bleach or Clorox. It is been tested. Clorox and Lysol have been tested for coronavirus, although it's not been tested for the COVID-19. So it's been tested to be able to kill it on surface. So both Clorox and Lysol, or one or the other, or both. And then vinegar is something I always use as a backup. I believe these viruses, they're used to a single type of drug. So you do a concoction. I also have bentonite clay and charcoal on you to use to remove toxins. If you get sick, you have a way to have some things to pass through your body to pull the toxins out to help you recover faster. Always blend that with some flaxseed meal if you're going to take it internally, or if you're going to use it externally, just use it externally with water and make a paste. High volumes of vitamin C, have that on you, vitamin C and vitamin D. If you don't use it, then you just do it naturally. High amount of citrus and other things like cassava and stuff like that that have high volume of vitamin C. Vitamin D, either get the sunlight. In the past, when they would treat people who have tuberculosis, what they would treat them with is sunlight. So they have them sunbathe. This builds up the vitamin D, and the vitamin D is a steroid. It takes on inflammation. People who have COVID-19, they have respiratory problem, and so they need anti-inflammatory. Have anti-inflammatory herbs like turmeric on you, white willow bark, that type of thing to take down inflammation, because this is a thing that inflames the lower respiratory tract. Herbs for the lungs, like herbs for the lung, like yarrow and things like that, pleurisy, so that you can have something to help clean out the lungs. Some natural herbs, immune herbs like echinacea, golden seed, poor dark inner bark. Those herbs are good for the immune system. Have them on you. Have some storage of protein, carbs, and vegetables just in case there's an outbreak in your local area or in the United States. At least you have some protein, carbs, and vegetables, more preferable frozen or canned vegetables. So just in case you have to be locked up for a little bit, you have some way not to be always have to go to the store. The less frequency in major public areas, better. Just remember, when we're dealing with this type of situation, that the people are more susceptible to the COVID-19 or to the influenza that's going around now, influenza B, is that there are people who have COPD, diabetes, coronary artery problem, some type of circulatory problem, and people who are obese are the next more comorbidity that happens, or low immunity for some reason, for cancer, for other reasons. So these are the way that you build up your system with the vitamin C, the vitamin D, the anti-inflammatory herb, the herb, the herbs for the lungs, the immune herbs, the charcoal. You build up your system. You keep a sterile, clean environment. Have some backup on you just in case, because as you see what happened, that went down. The moment there's an outbreak, the store shelves get cleaned out. If you buy this stuff and it's a backup or you have extra stuff, you're just going to eat through it in the next few months. So it doesn't matter if nothing happened. But if it happened, at least you have some backup. We talk a little bit more in the future about this. Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of today, your word and for the way you continue to guide us, dear Lord, how to take care of our bodies. And now, dear Lord, to prevent and to treat diseases. May you bless us, we pray, as we go through the rest of this day. For Christ's sake, we pray. Amen. Thanks for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live tomorrow morning, where we shall talk about current events. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.